Hi, guys. Welcome to Share Your Story, Get That Job, where I am here to share some tips today for creating your professional portfolio so that you can put a face and a story to more than just like your CV or resume. Um, I am Katie Fielding. I am an instructional technology coach in Prince William County, Virginia. I'm also a Google trainer, innovator, and coach. And I am a member of Unison EDU as well as another group, ITCs for All. And I have all those badges you see, which take them for what you want. So first, let's talk about why we want to make a portfolio. And portfolios are a really great way to share your story of growth. Portfolios are not just meant to show your best stuff. I mean, they certainly will do that, but they're also supposed to show a growth mindset. And the same thing we want to see in our students. We want to be exemplifying when we are going to an assessment. And you can think of an interview kind of like an assessment. You're wanting to put your best foot forward and show your best work, but also show that you are growing and still learning in your profession and that you're not a stagnant person. So some ways to think about creating your portfolio. I'm going to talk about three things. One, first, using an educational framework to build it around. Second, some tools and design tricks for making that portfolio. And then third, we'll talk about some of the pieces or artifacts that you might include. So let's first talk about those educational frameworks. So this is a convenient, basically a scaffold to build your story on top of. These are places, that many administrators might be familiar with, these frameworks. So you're going to create a connection between the story you want to share about yourself and something that they're familiar with in their educational experience. So some educational frameworks that you could build your portfolio around include the ISTE standards. So you could build them around either the teacher standards, or if you're wanting to be a coach, the coaching standards, or if you're looking to be an instructional leader, the administrator standards, or you could even build them around your student standards with your evidences, the artifacts that you use. If you're a teacher in Virginia, you could use the 5 C's of being a Virginia teacher. So that could be of a Virginia graduate. So that could be very convenient. So communication, collaboration, citizenship. Again, that's something that administrators are going to be familiar with. And so building your pieces along that framework can be helpful to share your story. And then there's also the Future Ready framework. So those could be also another way to share your story. They have those for librarians, for coaches, tech leaders. So if you're looking to go into that area, that might be something to build your portfolio around. All right, let's talk about tools and design. This is the fun stuff. We want your website to look professional, but we also want it to share your personality. So I'm going to go over basically 4 steps you might use to create your website and make it an engaging, visually appealing space. So your first step is you want to buy your domain. You do not want to share that long, weird URL just from a Google site. You want it to say katiefielding.com. You want it to say johnsmith.com. You want it to say chloespears.com. Whatever your name, you want to buy your domain. Number 2, you want to pick your platform that you're going to build your website on. I'm going to make a couple recommendations, but there are a lot of website builders out there that you can use. 3, you want to develop your design style. So before you get into building that portfolio, you want to actually do some design thinking, like some thinking about what you actually want your design to look like. Do some iterations, some storyboarding, or I'm going to show you some branding boarding, and before you actually dive into making the website itself. And then step 4 is to be curating your pieces. So buying your domain. This is very important. Again, we want it to make it easy for people to find your website. We want it to look professional. It only costs $12 to buy most domains. So this is not a pricey investment. I like using Google domains. You can get there at domains.google.com and you can buy your domain right there. I like buying from Google because they have it really nicely integrated that if you do want to use a Google site, it's very easy to create your Google site where the domain you just purchased will mask that long sites.google.com a zillion characters URL. Also, they have a lot of partners, and one I'm going to mention on the next slide. Again, making it easy for your domain to mask their other URLs. All right, so platforms. If you want a really basic, if you're familiar and comfortable with using Google tools, I recommend Google Sites. It's actually has a lot of new features recently, being able to pick more text and more formatting. So it's a great tool. If you really love web design and really want to get into it, Wix has very professional looking templates. Even if you aren't really design savvy, they will make you look design savvy. So those are two platforms that I recommend. Then your next step is to make a style board. And so on that style board, you're going to put your colors, your graphics, and your fonts, and kind of like a storyboard or an image board or a bulletin board you might have made. And you're just going to like put your fonts, your colors, your graphics, and think about them and make sure that's the style you want to evoke on your website. I like and would recommend you either use Canva or Adobe Spark to make this. And I'll show you in a few minutes the tools that they have built into their tool that will help you make these style boards. So colors. Colors are very important. Colors can really evoke a mood. There's a lot of psychology in colors. So you want to pick your brand colors. And when I say brand, your website is going to be the front page of your brand. Other things that might be included in your brand include your social media, anything you create for your social media, like videos, graphics, any content you're creating as part of your brand. So you want your website to be that main hub of what people know your brand to be. So picking your colors is going to be like a really important step. You can also use these same colors on some of the paper ephemera, like your printed resume or your digital resume, cover letters. You can carry those brand colors throughout all of that documentation. So you're going to pick some colors. I really love this website called coolers.co, and I'll show you that in a minute about how you can use that to generate a color scheme. You generally want 4 to 5 colors in your brand color scheme, and we'll go over that a little bit more. Then you want to pick some graphics. Now, you can really dive deep in graphics, but you want to have a unified graphical story on your portfolio. So you don't want to use random clip art that doesn't really have a unifying connection to it. So you want to kind of pick an artist and use all different graphics from that same artist. So I'm going to show you a couple free options, undraw.co and drawkit.io, which have great graphics, which you can apply your brand colors to and then implement on your website. If you want to go deeper, you can get into Adobe stock images that you can edit with your brand colors in Adobe Illustrator. That's what I do, but that's a deep dive and maybe more money than you want to spend. These options I'm going to show you are free. The next thing is fonts. You want to be very careful about picking your fonts. You want fonts that are easily readable and clean. I recommend choosing sans serif fonts because they have the best readership. People that have reading difficulties have a much easier time reading sans serif fonts. And so I'm going to show you FontJoy, a website that you can use to help create font sets. Usually within a website, you want to use 2 to 3 fonts over the whole website. So this will show FontJoy is a great website that will help you pair fonts that look good together. So let me show you some of these resources that I've talked about. All right, so the first thing I talked about was Canva. And when you're in your Canva account, if you don't have a Canva account, you need to run and get one. Get the Canva EDU account. Just go home and Google Canva EDU. You want the educator account, it's free, you get all the premium features. All right, so when you're in your Canva account, you wanna go to your brand kit. Now here is where you can kind of do some of that storyboarding and image building that I was talking about. So you can build brand kit color logo, or you can build color sets. And so here, if I wanna add a palette, I would just say add a customized palette. And I can enter the hex codes, which are these 6-digit color codes, this color code on the internet. And I would enter those brand code, those hex codes of the colors that I've decided are my brand. Then anytime I make something in Canva, those colors are readily available for me to use. I want to continue to use my brand colors because graphics are going to then be identified as something that I create. It's kind of almost like putting your stamp on it. The same thing with fonts. You can create font sets, and so those fonts are always available to you in Canva. So making a brand kit in Canva is going to be helpful for you. Making your graphics that you might use on your social media or throughout your website as pieces of evidence. A second tool, maybe you're more comfortable or using Adobe Spark. You also can build a brand in Adobe Spark in the same way, adding logos, colors, and fonts. So let me give you some of those tools to help you create your brand. And the first one of those that I love is Coolers. And you just have to click Start the Generator. And maybe you already have a color in mind that you want to use. Maybe you don't. So what you can do is you can just come to this website and you can press your space bar. And you can keep pressing your space bar until maybe you see a color that like piques your interest. Maybe I see this purple and I'm like, you know what? I really enjoy this color. I think this could be part of my brand. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to click the lock on it. And then I'm going to keep pressing my space bar until I find maybe a second color that I like. And then I'm going to click the lock on that. It's also good to keep in mind that in your brand, you should include a neutral color. So maybe I want to include this white color. So now I'm going to be looking for 2 more colors for my brand. You also maybe want some bright colors and also maybe some lighter colors. You don't have to use all your brand colors in every image you create. You can use lighter ones sometimes and darker ones sometimes. But this is kind of like, I equate this like having your brand colors to Mark Zuckerberg's gray hoodie or Steve Jobs' black turtleneck. You don't have to wake up thinking about what colors to use in your graphic images. You can start always thinking about the content. So once you have that brand to go to, these are going to be your go-to colors. People are going to start to associate graphics made with these colors to be with you, and you don't have to think about them. So once you pick colors you really like, they're going to be your go-tos. All right, so I'm going to keep clicking my space bar, and I'm going to find colors that I like. Now, once I get those 6 colors, now these are maybe not what I would pick, but I now have these hex codes that I can add into my brand and use in my website. So you would want to write these down or maybe make a digital note of them. These are going to be your go-to hex codes and colors for your brand. So Coolers, great website to use. Second thing that I want to point out is Undraw. So now you've had your colors established. You want some good graphics for your website. Undraw is a great resource for free graphics. So I'm just going to click Browse now, and I can search. But the first thing you'll notice is you can choose a color. So I'm going to go back to that palette I selected, and I'm going to select this hex code. I choose this purple. This is what I want the main part of my website to be. So I can go and put this hex code in. And now all the graphics that I'm going to look and search for are going to be based around that color. So now you can see all the graphics have this color. They all have a unifying look. They're the same artist. So I can use 5 of these graphics on my website. It looks like I've hired an illustrator. It looks like I'm professional and I can really pull my things together. So all I would have to do if I wanted to, include this graphic on my website is just say download for PNG or a blog. And then I would upload this to the Google site or the Wix site that I was using. So Undraw is a really great resource. Similarly, a Draw Kit is a great resource and actually is the resource for the images I've used in this presentation. So Draw Kit, they have different packs of images. So the images that I've used in this presentation actually come from this education and online learning. And these images I can download. These are SVG images. And if I have access to Adobe Illustrator, I can then go edit those colors of the images to be my brand colors. So the presentation I'm giving today is actually my brand colors. So I've re-edited these images, just changed the colors and put them in my website or this presentation, and it is associated with me. And the last site that I'm going to show is FontJoy. So there is a science and art to pairing fonts. So on Font Joy, I can click this and I can search for the font maybe that I really love. So let's say it is this one. And so I will pick it, and now that is my main heading, and I want to lock that one in. Then again, I can just click generate, and it's going to select a like subtitle font and a body font that go well with that main title font. So maybe I like this one, maybe I want to keep looking, and I'm like, okay, this is actually maybe more of the vibe that I want my website to have. So I'll lock that one in, but I still want to look for a body font. I can keep generating and getting fonts that will pair well together. So then you would want to write down these font names over here and put that like on your sheet of paper with your hex codes. And that is going to be your brand that you're going to build your website around. So let's go back to the presentation. Let's see if there's any questions in the chat first. Let's see. Yeah, people loving Canva. Mel says I've rarely used Canva. Oops. Yeah, definitely oops. You are going to really want to start using some Canva. All right, let's see. Who else? Anything else? People loving the Canva. This person's loving all these great creation tools. Yeah, even if you're not going to make a portfolio, you can use some of these in your practice all the time. They are like my go-tos daily. All right. And actually, Shannon here is saying she's actually more of a Spark fan than Canva, which is totally great too. Both great tools. Any tools where we can get students creating and ourselves creating are going to be great tools to have in our classroom. And that's ultimately why I want you to start doing and creating a portfolio, is because you are going to be comfortable creating these things, and then you're going to get your students creating them too. So here is my sample style board. So I am going to take those colors that I've made, and I'm going to take the graphics, and I'm going to take the fonts, and I'm going to either use Adobe Spark or Canva to make my style board. And what I'm just going to recommend is, like, I am really feeling this vibe, but I'm going to recommend you make 2 or 3 style boards, and then you're going to get some feedback on them, because what you love may actually like turn someone else off. So it kind of may be good to get some feedback. That's definitely what we do in the design thinking process. We want to get feedback. So, you know, maybe what I think is going to look really good, other people don't care for, or maybe is off-putting in some way. So it's always just good to get feedback from some people, your kids at home, your kids in your classroom, colleagues, friends, whoever. All right, let's see. Next, the most important part. Now we can focus on our content, and we want to get some good artifacts in our portfolio. Now, there are 2 approaches to this, okay? There's the constructivist approach, where we're going to put things that maybe aren't perfect, but our reflection of those pieces is going to be the important part. Or we have the positivist view, where these are like our exemplars, okay? So you get to decide which you're going to include. Maybe you're going to do a mix, but if you do the constructivist, you include things that aren't perfect, the reflection piece that you're going to have alongside it is going to be really important. All right, so what pieces and things should you include in your portfolio? You might want a personal statement. So if you're going for a specific role or job, you might want to have a statement about that, or your educational philosophy. Anyone remember having to write those back in school, of your educational philosophy? Yeah, that was fun. And how much it's changed maybe in 17 years that you've been an educator. All right, and then your CV or your resume, you're going to have the usual suspects on that. You're going to have your education and employment history, and maybe some presentations you've given at conferences, and any professional associations you may be a part of. And then you're going to want the lesson plans and student samples. Now, it is important to remember student samples. You should block out anything that is going to be personally identifying information from students. We really want to keep student privacy, even if this is just, you know, something you're going to share with potential employers. And remember, again, your examples do not have to be exemplars. They can just be something that you're going to reflect And if effectiveness data is important for your role that you might be going for, that might also be something you want to include in your examples or artifacts. All right. Some other things that are very much not what you were putting in those slide protectors back in 19 or 2004 when I was doing mine. Your social media is actually really a huge artifact in educational networks today. So if you have some tweets that were very popular or things that you created and shared that became popular, those would be great to include on your website. Multimedia. We are all teaching digitally now, or at least have in some respect in the past year have. So videos and images of yourself working are important, showing yourself doing what you love. And lastly, any awards, achievements, or honors. Your portfolio is not a time to be modest. I am usually generally a modest person, not trying to share those things, but professionally you need to share the awards and recognitions that you've been given. So this is a time to do those things. At the beginning of my presentation, I had that slide with all of my badges. And if you are looking to go into ed tech, badges can be very helpful to show that you're familiar with tech tools. And so I would recommend badgetech.com. They have a whole list of all the possible badges you can get. So that might be a good resource if you don't have any of those, but you're looking for a new role in education to kind of show that you're familiar with some tools that maybe that school you're looking to go to uses. That can be helpful to get those things. All right. So I see a great question in the chat, and I'm going to share that. And Shannon says, what about feedback, emails, comments? Definitely, if you have some emails, I would say emails that people say that you can use. I would maybe want to go back to that, or letters of reference, people's recommendations of you. Feel free to share those and add those on your portfolio. Yeah, I want to shout out to Rachel for Badge Ed Tech for sure. All right. Let's see. Great comments. All right. Yeah, celebratory or thank you emails. Those would definitely be things that you can include. Screenshots of those can be helpful. But remember, personal information, maybe check with those people. Don't put the email address out there. All right. So after you've made your portfolio, hopefully that is something you will send, be at the top of your resume. I love a portfolio because maybe they're not going to look at it before your interview. But when you go into your interview and they're asking you questions, you say, actually, let me show you on my portfolio. And you have maybe your laptop with you that you've already pulled it up. And you're like, hello, look what I've created. I've been doing this. And you have that evidence right there, which can be a nice talking point. Then also we want to take this practice of portfolios into our classroom. And like I kind of said earlier, if you're familiar and comfortable making a portfolio for yourself, you're going to be much more inclined to help facilitate a portfolio creation in your classroom. So there are many types of student portfolios that you can do. So you can do portfolios for growth, mastery, a mix of the two. So again, that constructivist or positivist approach to a portfolio, or you can mix it. And again, if it's growth, you're going to have students, reflecting and sharing over time, but things more like the, those AP portfolios might just be a mastery type situation where they're showing the best of what they did. We all are probably familiar with the benefits of portfolios, but I'll just share a few. So it can really help students track and establish their goals, because portfolios should be student driven. So they should set their goals and it's going to show their growth over time. So I really love doing portfolios especially in the CTE type classes. Like we have a cosmetology program at our school. So having them collect evidence of their hair and nail work over time, then that is something they can take into the workplace when they're ready to get a job at a salon. They can say, hey, this is what I've created. Let me show you. The same thing, portfolios also don't have to be image driven. They can be audio driven. So for our foreign language students, they can create portfolios of language, oral language over time, audio examples. So again, students are going to self-select these pieces. They're just going to be showing what they want to share. We really want that student-driven learning to happen in our class. Um, and I have some final thoughts, and those are take risks. Maybe put things in you wouldn't normally put in, and then just get some feedback from other people is the next step. After you have created your portfolio, get some feedback. It's always good to have an editor. I probably had some misspellings in this presentation because I didn't have one today, but an editor for grammar is always great, and then an editor for content is always great. I also regularly update my portfolio. So at the end of each month, I have on my calendar, like update portfolio. And so I do it on a monthly basis. So it's not a big, heavy lift when I'm going to actually look for a new position or put myself out there to share with other people. And then remember, your story is important. So what makes you unique? Make sure to include that. I'll say, I wasn't regularly sharing my story of cystic fibrosis maybe more than 5 years ago. But now that I share that story, I think my overall portfolio is much more impactful because it tells why I am unique and the education space, and what I have to share is maybe a little bit more powerful. All right. And so I would be glad for you to contact me, and I welcome any feedback on this presentation and any further ideas you have about portfolios or anything you want to do to chat. Let me just go to the comments before we wrap up. So Shannon says that she has created a portfolio with all of the items. Yeah, great. Flyers, all these things that I mentioned. Perfect. Yeah, the calendar updates are very helpful. And you're welcome for what I've shared. So thank you so much for coming, and I hope to talk to you later.